Okay, I'm here with Maria Huerta, and she knows that this is for my evaluation, and we're doing a planning session to plan for an Algebra 2 class tomorrow, actually. Okay, so what are your goals and objectives for the students?
So we're going to be working with solving inequalities, and so my objective is, or my goal is to actually do time management
For yourself?
for myself.
Okay, so the students are learning to solve inequalities?
Yes.
But your objective for yourself is you want to work on time management?
Yes.
Okay, and what would you like to improve about your time management?
Like how not to veer off, because typically we get stuck on a moment where we're actually asking too many questions, and so how do I prevent that from happening? And I feel bad because then I have to stop the class and help that one or two students, and then we eventually lose track, and then time.
So yours isn't going off task as far as going off down a rabbit trail. Yours is
No.
more you don't stay on course of your time?
Yes.
Okay, and then, so how will you know that the students are successful? You said you want the students to learn to solve an inequality.
Yes.
And how will you know they're successful?
Well, we usually do I do, we do, and then you do. And so, by me just doing the first step us together, and then doing it, well, I do it first and they do it together, and then they do it at the end, that's how I'm seeing, okay, do they understand the process or the concept, and what do I need to do about that?
Okay, so visually, how are you gonna see it? How are you gonna know?
Either doing the whiteboard, think about doing the whiteboard, or using the board itself, the big board.
Okay, so some students will come to the board?
Yes.
And the other students will do it on a whiteboard?
Yes.
Am
And
I
it's a
understanding?
random, but it's a random thing, so they don't know who's being chosen, so,
Oh, for the board.
for the board.
Okay.
Now, if we have the whiteboard, then we could do all of the boards, and then I can see what they have, and whoever doesn't understand it, then I know, okay, I may need to work a little bit more on that one student later on.
Okay, and then how will you know you're successful in your time management?
Oh, if I'm sick, okay. Oh, good question. How am I successful in time management?
Cause you said that your time management,
Uh-huh.
because you have a tendency to spend too much time helping just one or two students.
Mhm.
And it's almost like they don't let you move on,
Yes.
correct? Am
Uh-huh.
I understanding? So how will you know, so you wanna be better at that, and so how will you know that you're better at that? And don't think too hard about it,
I'm just, do watching the time, or is it?
yeah, watching the time.
I guess
or-
I don't have a timer, so that'd be a good idea. Putting a timer up on the smart board, like, okay, this is how much
Okay.
I'm doing, I want notes to see
Uh-huh.
if we can actually manage it. If not, then close enough to where we still have time to finish the rest of the activities of the day.
Yeah, and let's back up a little bit. Like, why do you feel like you need to improve at that? Like, what's frustrating? Because if I say, what do you want to improve in yourself, and you're like, time management because I get stuck, would you know you're successful because you don't get stuck on one thing?
Yes, like say we limited to like 15 minutes. Okay, let's see if I can get it done in 15 minutes. Then we can move on. Okay, 10 more minutes on this one activity, and move on from there.
And you would know that by setting a timer.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then what might be some strategies you've considered for like teaching inequalities?
Strategy.
You already mentioned I do, we do, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Any other strategies?
Probably a formative assessment, independent work somewhere on okay, let's see if you guys can do this, or even group work. But usually it's independent work to see if that one student get it. Because if that one student understands it, then we can move on. But if it's a group, then we know that probably one person doesn't, the other one doesn't do it. So I think independent work will be the most
Okay.
important.
So you'll want to use possibly some group work?
Probably,
but
but
maybe independent work?
maybe independent activity.
Work? Okay, and then, so let's say that you're doing independent work,
Mhm.
and then what would you be doing?
Just going around and watching to see if they're stuck. Because then if I'm walking around, that may be that one person that might need that help. Then I can help them there with the time management, not being overboarded whenever we were doing the lesson at the beginning.
Okay, and then what's the strategy if they get stuck? That
During the independent work.
Yeah, and you had mentioned something earlier about, when we were talking about the lesson, you had talked about, if they get stuck,
During the
there's only one of you,
yes.
what did you say you were gonna have them do?
Maybe write down a question or something. We'll have like a little, say 3 questions and not move on, or not. Write down the questions. Get back to me whenever you're doing the you do, and then we'll set it work on it from there.
And we talked about that during like, direct instruction,
Yes.
while you're directly instructing, and have them write their questions, almost like Cornell note style, I don't know if you, like down the side of the paper,
Okay.
where they write their questions down over here. But what about, you also talked about like working in pairs, and then you can see they didn't get it, because what would you see visually?
Well, I could see if one person's explain it to the other person, like, hey, this is what's going on, or, and I see that a lot in class, anyways. Like, I give them sometimes an independent work, and that one person that didn't understand it goes to the neighbor next door. I'm like, hey, how did you get this? 'Cause I did not get this, or I didn't understand this part. Can you help me? And that's where I'm like, okay, that person's stuck, or that person needs a little bit more help. And then I'll come around and be like, okay, did you have a question? Or you think, oh, I understood it, then I'll move on. Okay.
Right,
Next
you had
person.
mentioned that earlier, that you would put them in pairs and
Yeah.
watch and observe and see if somebody's having to explain it to another person, you're like, oh, they didn't get it, but that also frees you up to help,
Another person that might be stuck.
right, maybe 2 people that are stuck, that are
Yes.
working together.
Maybe
which
the
happens.
pairs, somebody working in pairs, I didn't understand it.
Right,
So.
you had mentioned that, so
Yes.
I just wanted to share that part, cause but do you have any other strategies, like, okay, so the pair, let's talk about, I do, we do, you do, you've done,
The whiteboard.
maybe the whiteboard to assess, you've done, pair, mentioned pairs, you also mentioned independent work, because your ultimate goal was to what?
To have them do it by themselves.
To be able
without
to do
help.
it independently, right? And you had mentioned that earlier. Anything else, any other strategies?
That I can think of.
Okay. And then, what is most important for you to pay attention in yourself?
Like I said, time management, make sure I don't veer off, or we don't all veer off, because once we all veer off, we're behind already, a day or 2, and that's the issue, especially with, I feel like especially with algebra too. Like we want them to succeed and get through all the concepts before we get to that one test at the end of the year.
Right. And so are you feeling confident tomorrow that you can, use your timer
Yes.
and maybe the questions to be successful in that?
Yes, and have them let them know, okay. Oh, yes, of course, tell them in the beginning, like, okay, this is what they have today. Make sure, if you have any questions, write it down before you ask me at the end. Then we can come back and be like, okay, what was your issue? But usually I'll answer 1 or 2 questions if it's a very good one. Like, and then everybody like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So that helps everybody.
Right. And so that was my next question. Is there a way to define the question, like when they should write it down and when they should ask, so that it helps the whole
Yeah.
group? Because you had mentioned that.
So the only issue is be like, okay, which one's a good question as well? Like, how do you pick a good one from not being a very good one? And
Or maybe a good one versus one that would be more of a one-on-one.
yes.
Like a good group question versus a one-on-one question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got that today. Like, they're asking me, like, what distance is, because we were talking about solving equations. And they're like, what, distance is always positive? And I'm like, yes, did y'all hear that? Distance is always positive. And I reiterated it like 5 times. And so, same thing here. Like, okay, if there's that one question, they're like, okay, let's talk about it. Or if it's not, like, let's wait till the end, and then we'll get to that one-on-one.
Okay.
And we don't veer off.
Is there another way, can you think of another strategy where you could limit the questions without, what do I say? I can't come up with the word. Discouraging them from asking questions, because you don't want to discourage them from asking questions. I know that, because
Yeah.
you've said that several times when you said, but sometimes they ask a good question that I want everybody to hear.
Yeah.
So what's a good way of limiting the questions without discouraging them?
Well, I'm gonna be like limit 3. Okay, let's limit 3 questions during the, say, the note taking or something, or the discussion.
Okay.
And then from there, if there is one probably at the end, as they're supposed to ask me independently, they'll be like, hey, let me stop y'all real quick, because I know y'all doing independent work and it's not actually clashing into my time. So, it'll be okay. So I think that'll be good.
Alright, so limiting the number of questions.
Yes. So, but like 3 per, like say we do the note taking, like I do 3 questions, the we do, let's do another 3, and then the you, and then I can ask answer as many as you want.
Right, while you're like
Moving around.
moving around. Okay. And as you reflect on this conversation where we talked about your goals and how you're gonna measure success and what are some strategies, and now what's most important in yourself, we've thought about that whole conversation, how has it supported your learning as a teacher?
I think it's making me actually think on my future lessons. Like, okay, how do I manage certain amount of time towards each section without having to go over a lot or minimize it to where everybody's actually getting the learning environment positive, like keeping it positive to where everybody's learning.
Okay.
Can't phrase that right.
So I think you're meaning like the most out of your time
Yes.
for everybody.
Yes,
Okay.
especially with this class. Yes.
So moving forward, you're gonna really think
Think
about
about-
how you can maximize your learning for everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that it's helped you think about?
No, not right.
Okay. All right. The end.
Okay.